I'm about to turn 43, and in my 43 years, I don't think I've ever gotten a gift from a stranger like the one that I got from Alex. But we'll get back to that. What do you guys do with your cracked and broken pallet boards? Typically I just burn mine or throw them out, but today I decided I would try to use these boards that I had off of this one pallet because they just had this really nice look to them. And when this project was over, I was really happy I didn't just throw them out. I wanted to make something for Alex to show my gratitude for the gifts that he gave me. And the last thing that I expected to be making it out of was a bunch of broken pallets. But anyway, let's get started. This is my antique Atlas 6-inch joiner, and it is a beast. Old tools like this just seem to hold up for some reason. So, like I said, I had these old pallet boards that I decided to use for this, and I have no idea what kind of wood they are. I've never been good at telling wood species, but I ran them through my joiner here, and I was really happy with the way they were looking. Once I had one surface flattened, I could flip it up on its side and put it along the side and flatten one edge. Now that I had that done, I could put away my jointer and pull out this Delta benchtop planer. This is my janky little system for dust collection. I actually bought a dust collection kit recently, and I'm sure that'll be an upcoming video, so keep an eye out. So to make sure that the two sides of this board are flat and parallel to one another, I take the flat side that I just created on the jointer and put that face down in my planer and run it through, and it will flatten out the top to match the bottom, giving me a parallel top and bottom. After that, I can just move over to my table saw and set my fence up and run the flat side of my board along the fence, creating a perfectly square board. Typically I would use my table saw sled to make these 45-degree angle cuts, but I recently dropped it when I was cleaning the workshop and part of it broke, so I'm just using the miter saw to get these cuts. This DeWalt miter saw is actually very accurate, so it works pretty good for this. Once I had that done, I could go back over to my table saw and lower my blade down to about half the height of these boards. I'm going to be sliding 1/4-inch plywood into the bottom of this. So after I make my first pass with all the boards, I have to slide the fence over 1/8 of an inch and make another pass to give enough room for the plywood to slide into. And right here I'm marking the 1/4-inch plywood so I can cut it to size. I use the actual sides as a reference instead of measuring to get a more accurate cut, and then I could run it through my table saw and then use my miter saw to make my second cut. And that piece of masking tape is on the board to just help prevent any sort of tear out. I sand the inside of all of these boards before I assemble them because it's not going to be easy to sand them later. Now I'm just running a bead of glue on what will be the top and clamping that all up. I get out my angle thingy here. I'm not really sure what this is called. Angle gauge? I have no idea. But it magnetizes to the table saw blade, and then I can tilt the table saw and make sure I'm getting an accurate cut. I set it to 45 degrees, and this cut needs to be very accurate, so that's why I use that instead of depending on my table saw. Then I could run the top of all of those boards that I just cut the grooves in through the table saw, creating a 45-degree angle on the top. This will all make sense in a minute. We're getting there, don't worry. Now it's time to do the glue up. They make a clamp that is great for gluing up frames like this. It's a strap clamp that goes around the entire thing. They also make other kinds, but I don't know where my strap clamp is, and I just decided I would wrap it with rubber bands, which worked great. Once I had it wrapped with rubber bands and secure, I use a piece of wood to just remove any of the glue from the inside edges because that's going to be really hard to get to if that dries. Then it was over to the miter saw to cut the top of this and square it all up. Then back over to the table saw to make my 45-degree angle cuts. Now I cut the top of the box on the right there with the 45-degree angle cuts. And then I'm cutting this lid to fit right in there. Now it looks like I'm making a cross cut here using my fence on the table saw, and that's not a good idea. I'm not actually doing that. It's just a weird angle with the camera. I'm actually using that sliding thing that goes in the table saw. What's that called? I don't know. Sliding miter gauge, maybe? Anyway, before I glue this whole thing together, I give a quick sand to the inside of this box, and then I can glue this top right on, creating one solid box. And once again, I use rubber bands to hold it all together. The next day, dark and early in the morning, probably about 3 o'clock, I came out in the workshop and cut this top off now that the glue was dry. To do this, I just stood the box up on its side and ran it through my table saw blade, as you can see. And then I could turn the box, keeping the same side against the fence, and once I did this on all 4 sides, the box had a lid and a base. And after that, I could run these all through my table saw at a 45-degree angle, creating this little decorative edge. There is really no point to this other than I thought it would just give a nice look to it. I just set my fence here so that the edge of this box was just barely touching the blade. Now it was time to put on this hardware, which is one of my least favorite parts of this whole process. It's stressful, and you don't want to mess up your project when you've gotten this far. So to help ensure that I wouldn't mess up this project, I pre-drilled all of my holes and then screwed all of this hardware on before I routed it. This way I knew I could have all of my holes set, then I could mark everything with a fine point pencil, take all of the hardware back off, and then use a router to remove most of this material and follow that up with a chisel in the corners. A palm router would be a much better option for this, but I don't have one, so this was a little bit of a challenge keeping everything nice and flat. But I got it done, and I was really happy with the way it came out. Alright, so while I'm finishing up this project, let me tell you the story about Alex and the gift that he gave me. A few months back, I was out delivering mail on my route, and I saw a jet router table and a rolling cart made by Craig on the side of the road for free. I grabbed both of them and threw them in the back of my mail truck and brought them home, and it worked out great for me. A few weeks later, I was passing by the same house, and Alex just happened to be outside. So I stopped and told him that I grabbed the tools, and I was thrilled to have them. He told me that he used to work for Woodcraft magazine and he taught woodworking, but at this point in his life he was retired and he had a lot of tools that were taking up space in his garage. In my mind, I was thinking I was about to get a bunch of tools at a fair price, which was awesome. I was really excited, and when he brought me in, he showed me the Atlas joiner that you saw earlier, the Delta planer that you also saw earlier in this video, and a jet air filtration system. When I asked him how much he wanted for all of it, he told me nothing at all. He just wanted to see him go to a person that was actually going to use them. Honestly, I really don't even know how to thank him for this, and I know this box isn't comparable to what he gave me, but I do know that from now on, if I have tools I don't want anymore, I'll be giving them away. This is a super expensive hobby to get into, and it brings me more joy than almost anything else in my life. So, Alex, I know you'll never see this, but thanks for the lesson, and I'll be sure to pay it forward. Pass it on, dudes. Later.
Bye, see you again, and have a good dream.